And talking about wrong messaging, Russia is escalating tensions with Europe. After sending 100,000 troops to the Ukraine border, Moscow has issued a new threat. It believes that NATO could ramp up its deployments in Ukraine, so Russia has threatened to respond with nuclear missiles. Is Vladimir Putin pushing the world towards the brink of a nuclear war? Our next report brings you the latest.
Russia is playing a dangerous game in Europe. It has raised tensions with a massive buildup in Ukraine. Now it is threatening the Europeans with nuclear weapons. A senior Russian diplomat has issued a warning. He says Russia could deploy intermediate-range nuclear missiles against Europe. Moscow believes NATO wants to deploy its own missiles to target Russia, so it feels the need to respond. Europe is taking the Russian threat seriously. On Monday, the European Union went into a huddle. The bloc is mulling a fresh round of sanctions against Russia. Europe's top diplomat is determined to send a strong message to Moscow.
We are on the turn mode, on the dissuasion mode, in order to the crisis to start. But in any case, we will send a clear signal that any aggression against Ukraine will have a high cost for Russia if this happens. But now we are trying to do our best in order to prevent this from happening.
US President Biden backs more sanctions against Russia. He spoke to the Russian president last week. Washington too remains committed to supporting Ukraine. But Biden has refused to send American troops if a war does break out. The American president believes he can rein in Putin without boots on the ground.
Here's the deal. I've made it absolutely clear to President Putin, it's the last thing I'll say, that if he moves on Ukraine, the economic consequences for his economy are going to be devastating. Devastating.
The West hasn't hesitated from using strong language against Russia. So far, their strategy is proving to be ineffective. After his call with Biden, Putin deployed more troops near the Ukrainian border. Russia is raising the stakes on the ground. Reports say 100,000 Russian troops are now stationed near the Ukrainian border. 1,000 soldiers recently conducted a drill there. These Russian soldiers were firing bullets just 50 kilometers away from the border. On the other side of the fence, the Ukrainian soldiers have lost faith in the diplomats. They believe they need to be prepared for a conflict.
In general, you should only talk to Putin with weapons. He only understands the language of guns. But I will say it again. Any diplomatic negotiations, if they lead to a peaceful solution to this conflict without losing their territories, I always agree to them.
The war has been going on for 8 years. For 8 years, there have been many of these negotiations. And roughly speaking, if we look at 2014 to 2015, nothing has changed basically. The war has been going on for 8 years. For 8 years, there have been many of these negotiations, and roughly speaking, if we look at 2014 to 2015, nothing has changed basically. Yes, there are fewer shells in some places, but people are still dying, and there are still problems at the front.
The West hoped sanctions would tame Moscow's aggression, but they have failed to deliver. Russian President Vladimir Putin has now called for a dialogue with NATO and the United States. The world is closely watching if these crucial talks can restore peace in Europe. Bureau Report, WION, World is